January 29th, 1945. Holsheim, Belgium. The snow crunches under your boots like brittle glass. The air thick with the metallic tang of gunpowder and the frozen bite of winter. First Sergeant Leonard Alfred Funk Jr., a stocky paratrooper from Pennsylvania with a no-nonsense gaze hardened by months of combat, steps forward into a nightmare. 90 German soldiers, their breaths fogging the frigid air, surround him and his captured men. Knees in the snow, hands raised. The Americans stare in disbelief as an enemy officer jabs an MP-40 submachine gun into Funk's stomach. The officer barks orders in guttural German, demanding surrender. Funk, his Thompson slung over his shoulder, tilts his head as if puzzled. Then, inexplicably, he laughs. A deep, rolling chuckle that echoes through the silent village. In the next 45 seconds, everything changes. But to understand how this unassuming man from Braddock Township became a legend, we have to go back to where it all began for him. The chaos of D-Day. Rewind the clock to June 6, 1944. 0200 hours. High above the darkened fields of Normandy, France, the C-47 Skitran transport plane vibrates with the roar of twin engines, cutting through the night sky like a predator on the hunt. Inside, crammed shoulder to shoulder, sit the men of Company C, 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 82nd Airborne Division. The air is heavy with the smell of cigarette smoke, vomit from airsick troopers, and the oily scent of greased weapons. Leonard Funk, then a staff sergeant at 23 years old, checks his gear for the umpteenth time. His M1A1 Thompson submachine gun, loaded with .45 caliber rounds, hangs across his chest. Grenades bulge in his pockets, a fighting knife strapped to his leg, and his parachute harness digs into his shoulders under the weight of 100 pounds of equipment. The red light flickers on stand up and hook up. The plane bucks in flak fire, anti-aircraft shells bursting around them like deadly fireworks, shredding the sky with shrapnel. Hook up! The jumpmaster bellows over the din. Funk clips his static line to the cable running the length of the fuselage, his heart pounding but his face a mask of calm determination. He's no stranger to jumps. Drafted in 1941 from his job as a clerk in Pittsburgh, he'd volunteered for the paratroopers, drawn by the elite status and extra pay. Training at Camp Blanding, Florida, and then Fort Benning, Georgia had forged him. Endless runs, obstacle courses, mock battles that left him bruised but unbreakable. Now, as part of the All-American Division, he's about to drop behind enemy lines to secure key objectives ahead of the beach landings. The green light flashes. Go, go, go. Funk shuffles forward in the stick of jumpers, the wind howling through the open door like a banshee. He leaps into the void, the static line yanking his chute open with a sharp crack. Below, tracers arc up from German positions, red and green streaks painting the night. The descent is a blur. Flak exploding nearby, planes spiraling in flames, parachutes blooming like ghostly flowers. Funk hits the ground hard in a farmer's field near Picoville, west of St. Mire-Église, rolling to absorb the impact. Mud splatters his face, the cold Normandy earth soaking through his jump boots. He shrugs off his chute, grabs his Thompson, and scans the shadows. Whistles pierce the air. Cricket clickers, the paratroopers signal to rally. Click, click. He responds. Click, click. But the drop is scattered. High winds and evasive maneuvers have thrown men miles off course. Funk links up with a handful from his platoon. Private First Class John Doe with his bar, Corporal Mike Harris clutching an M1 Garand. They move out, boots sinking in the hedgerow-lined bocage country, where ancient stone walls and thick foliage create natural fortresses. Dawn breaks gray and misty, revealing the first signs of the enemy. A German patrol, Wehrmacht soldiers in field gray uniforms, helmets glinting, armed with Kar 98K rifles and MG42 machine guns. Funk's group ambushes them from a ditch, his Thompson chattering in short bursts, dropping two before they can react. Bullets whine past, splintering branches. Flank him! Funk shouts, his voice steady amid the chaos. By midday, they've consolidated with more stragglers, forming an ad hoc force. Funk takes charge, his leadership instinctive. They push toward their objective, The Murderette River bridges, vital to prevent German reinforcements from reaching Utah Beach. En route, they stumble into a hornet's nest, a German strongpoint in a farmhouse, defended by two MG-42 nests spitting 1,200 rounds per minute. The air fills with the buzzsaw roar, pinning the Americans down in a ditch. Dirt erupts around them as bullets chew the earth. Funk crawls forward under fire, grenades in hand. He hurls one, boom, silencing the first gun, shards of wood and metal flying. Wounded in the hand by shrapnel, blood soaking his glove, he ignores it, lobbing another to take out the second. His men charge, garrons cracking, bayonets fixed. The farmhouse falls, prisoners taken, weapons captured. Over the next days, Funk's actions earn him the Distinguished Service Cross. On June 7th, he leads a patrol that destroys 3 enemy machine guns and captures 30 prisoners. Purple Heart No. 1 comes from that hand wound, but he waves off medics, bandaging it himself with a field dressing. The fighting is brutal, hedgerow to hedgerow, close-quarters combat where bayonets and fists decide fates. Funk's Thompson becomes an extension of his arm, its drum magazine allowing sustained fire that mows down charging Germans. By June 8th, they've linked with beachhead forces, but the cost is high. Bodies in the fields, the stench of cordite and death lingering. Normandy shapes Funk, turns the clerk into a warrior. But the war is far from over. As summer fades, the 82nd prepares for the next drop. Operation Market Garden. Funk, promoted for his valor, steels himself for Holland. September 17th, 1944. 1,330 hours. High above the flat, canal-crossed fields of the Netherlands, the drone of hundreds of C-47 Skitrans fills the sky like an angry swarm. Inside one of them, First Sergeant Leonard Funk grips his Thompson tighter, the familiar weight a comfort against the butterflies in his gut. The 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment is jumping again, this time into Operation Market Garden. The bold Allied plan to seize a series of bridges and punch straight into Germany's industrial heartland. The air is crisp, the ground below a patchwork of green fields, dikes, and windmills, deceptively peaceful. Red light on. Stand up, hook up. The men of Company C shuffle in line, faces blackened with cork, jumpsuits bulging with ammo, grenades, and rations. Funk, now a seasoned veteran of Normandy, nods to his platoon. Men who've bled with him in the bocage, who trust his calm under fire. Green light. Out they go, one after another, static lines snapping chutes open. Funk plunges into the slipstream, the roar fading as his canopy blooms. Below, drop zone T near Grosbeek comes up fast. Open fields ringed by woods. He hits the ground rolling, the impact jarring but clean. No scattered drop this time. The regiment assembles quickly, weapons up. The 508th's mission. Secure the Grosbeek Heights, a ridgeline dominating the area, block German reinforcements from the Reichswald forest, and if possible, push to the massive highway bridge at Nijmegen over the Vaal River. It's ambitious. A bridge too far, some whisper, but the paratroopers move out with purpose. Funk's company advances through the polder country, boots squelching in the soft soil, hedgerows giving way to open meadows. Initial resistance is light. Scattered Wehrmacht troops quickly overrun. Garrons crack, Thompsons chatter in controlled bursts. Prisoners start coming in, hands up, sullen faces under coal scuttle helmets. But on September 18th, near Wassenhoek, some records call it Vauxhall, the sky darkens with incoming Allied gliders. Waco CG-4s hauling jeeps, guns, and reinforcements. Suddenly, tracer rounds streak upward from a German position. A battery of 3 20mm flak guns, crews frantically cranking the barrels skyward. The gliders are sitting ducks, fragile canvas and with frames plummeting toward the landing zone. Funk doesn't hesitate. He grabs 2 men, let's call them Private Ellis with his M1 and Corporal Reyes on the bar, and forms a hasty patrol. We're taking those guns, he says, voice low but firm. They move fast, using ditches and folds in the ground for cover. The air alive with the sharp crack of 20mm rounds and the deeper thud of exploding gliders. One crashes nearby, flames licking the wreckage, screams cutting through the noise. Funk's blood boils, not rage, but cold focus. They close to within grenade range. Funk hurls first, a fragmentation grenade arcing perfectly into the nearest pit. Boom! Shrapnel tears through the crew, the gun falling silent. Bullets snap past as the Germans swing the other guns around. Funk charges, Thompson blazing .45 slugs in short, deadly bursts. Ellis and Reyes flank, pouring fire. The second gun crew panics, some fleeing, others dropping as rounds find them. Funk leaps into the emplacement, knife out if needed, but it's over quick. Crew dead or dying, blood staining the ammunition crates. The third gun tries to traverse, but Reyes' bar rips into them, heavy slugs punching through. In minutes, it's done. 3 guns silenced, around 20 Germans killed or captured. The landing zone cleared. Gliders touch down safely now, wheels bouncing on the grass, unloading vital supplies and troops. Hundreds of lives saved by 3 paratroopers' guts. For this, Funk earns the Distinguished Service Cross, the nation's second highest award. His citation praises his initiative, outstanding bravery, and strong personal leadership despite overwhelming enemy superiority. But Market Garden grinds on. The 508th digs in on the heights, holding a massive perimeter against counterattacks. Funk's men repel probes from SS units, MG-42s chattering from the forest edge, mortar rounds walking the lines. Nights are cold, rations short, but they hold. At Nijmegen, the bridge fight turns brutal. Allied forces cross the Waal in canvas boats under murderous fire, but the 508th secures the approaches. Yet the operation falters farther north. At Arnhem, the British 1st Airborne is surrounded, pounded relentlessly. Relief doesn't come in time. By late September, the survivors withdraw, Market Garden a costly failure. The 508th pulls back to camps in France and England, licking wounds, another Purple Heart for Funk from shrapnel in a counterattack. He's promoted, hardened further, his reputation growing. The stocky sergeant who leads from the front, Thompson always ready. Rest is brief. December brings rumors of a massive German push through the Ardennes. The 82nd Airborne rushes to stem it, the Battle of the Bulge. Funk and the 508th load trucks, heading into the frozen hell of Belgium. December 18, 1944. The Ardennes Forest, Belgium. Snow swirls in blinding sheets as trucks carrying the men of the 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment rumble eastward through the night, headlights dimmed to slits. The German offensive has smashed through thin American lines 2 days earlier, catching Allied command off guard in what will become the largest and bloodiest battle fought by the U.S. Army in World War II. First Sergeant Leonard Funk sits in the back of a deuce and a half, Thompson across his knees, breath fogging in the sub-zero air. The 82nd Airborne, fresh from rest camps in France, is rushing to plug the gap. No winter clothing issued, just jump boots, wool uniforms, and overcoats against temperatures plunging to -20. Frostbite will claim as many men as bullets. The regiment unloads near Werbomont, digging hasty foxholes in frozen ground that chips away at entrenching tools. Funk's Company C takes position along the Somme River line, part of a defensive arc shielding the vital road hub of St. Vith. The forest is eerily quiet at first, broken only by the distant rumble of artillery and the occasional scream of Nebelwerfer rockets. Screaming Mimes that burst overhead in clusters of shrieking death. Then the Germans come, waves of gray-clad infantry supported by Panther and Tiger tanks, emerging from the mist like ghosts. Funk's platoon holds a forward outpost in a cluster of snow-laden pines. On December 20th, a probing attack hits them hard. SS Grenadiers from the 1st SS Panzer Division, fanatical and well-equipped. MG-42s open up, the tearing canvas sound ripping through the trees, branches exploding into splinters. Funk's men return fire from behind logs and shallow scrapes, garrons and bars cracking steadily. A German squad tries to flank through a draw. Funk spots them first, motioning 2 troopers to shift left. He crawls forward himself, belly in the snow, Thompson ready. At 20 yards, he opens up short, accurate bursts that drop 3 before they can scatter. The rest pull back, leaving blood trails in the white. Days blur into nights of constant vigilance. Ammunition runs low, rations scarcer, rations frozen solid, men warming them against their bodies. Funk moves from hole to hole, checking his men's feet for frostbite, sharing cigarettes, keeping spirits up with quiet jokes in his Pennsylvania drawl. On Christmas Eve, the Germans launch a heavier assault. Tanks rumble forward, main guns booming, shells uprooting trees in geysers of snow and earth. Bazooka teams scramble, but one Panther closes dangerously. Funk grabs a bazooka from a wounded loader, kneels in the open and fires, rocket streaking true, slamming into the turret ring. Secondary explosions rip the tank apart, flames licking skyward, illuminating the battlefield in orange glow. The attack falters. The line holds. The 82nd and attached units buy precious time, delaying the German northern shoulder until Patton's Third Army can swing north. By early January 1945, the bulge is contained, but not yet crushed. The 508th is shifted northwest to the area around Hersbach and Holzheim, small Belgian villages buried in deep snowdrifts. The mission: clear pockets of resistance, round up stragglers, and push the Germans back across the border. Funk's company operates in small patrols, moving house to house, barn to barn, through waist-deep snow that exhausts men in minutes. January 29th dawns bitter cold. The sky a dull gray, wind whipping powdery snow into faces. Funk leads a patrol of about 15 men from Company C, sweeping toward Holzheim to link up with elements of the 504th Parachute Infantry. Intelligence reports scattered enemy groups surrendering in droves, demoralized, low on fuel and food. But not all are ready to quit. As Funk's patrol approaches the village outskirts, muffled shots echo ahead. They crest a slight rise and see it. A group of their own paratroopers, about 30 men, on their knees in the village square, hands behind heads, guarded by a much larger force of Germans. 90 or more, armed with rifles, MP40s, even a couple of MG42s on tripods. A German officer stands triumphant, gesturing sharply. Funk's men drop into cover, weapons up, but the enemy has the drop, numbers overwhelming. The German commander spots the new arrivals and shouts an order. Several soldiers peel off, advancing cautiously. Funk, realizing resistance means massacre for the captives, stands up slowly, hands raised, Thompson still slung. "Hold fire," he mutters to his men behind him. He walks forward alone into the square, snow crunching under each deliberate step. The officer, a lieutenant, by his insignia, meets him halfway, smug, barking in German, "Surrender your weapons, all of you." Funk doesn't speak German. He stares blankly, then the absurdity hits him. These Germans think they've won, but they're exhausted, spread thin guarding prisoners. A grin creeps across his frost-chapped face. Then he laughs. A genuine, belly-deep laugh that rings out across the frozen square. The officer's face twists in confusion and anger. He jabs his MP40 hard into Funk's stomach, repeating the demand louder, spittle flying. In that instant, everything hangs on what happens in the next 45 seconds. The German lieutenant's face reddens with fury at the laugh, the MP40 digging deeper into Leonard Funk's stomach. Snowflakes swirl between them, catching the pale winter light. The square is deathly quiet except for the wind and the nervous shifting of 90 German rifles and submachine guns pointed at the kneeling American prisoners and the small group of paratroopers still in cover at the edge of the village. Funk keeps his hands raised, palms open, the picture of compliance. But his eyes, cold, calculating, flick to the German guarding the captured Americans' weapons, piled carelessly in the snow just a few paces away. Among them, his own M1A1 Thompson, drum magazine loaded with 50.45 ACP rounds. The lieutenant screams again in German, gesturing wildly for Funk to drop to his knees. Funk shrugs, still smiling, and takes one slow step backward, as if confused, buying inches. The officer follows, barrel still pressed forward, closing the gap to the weapon pile without realizing it. In a flash that no one sees coming, Funk's right hand snaps down like a striking cobra. He grabs the muzzle of the MP40, wrenching it upward and to the side just as the lieutenant's finger tightens on the trigger. A burst chatters harmlessly into the sky, snow and cordite filling the air. With his left hand, Funk draws his Colt .45 pistol from its holster in one fluid motion. Bang! And the lieutenant drops a single round through the chest. Chaos erupts. Funk dives sideways, rolling in the snow toward the weapon pile as bullets snap overhead and thud into the frozen ground. Germans shout, rifles barking, but surprise has shattered their discipline. He comes up on one knee behind the pile, Thompson already in his hands. He must have snatched it mid-roll, the movement a blur. The Thompson roars. Funk works the gun in tight, professional bursts, 3 to 5 rounds at a time, sweeping the nearest cluster of guards. The heavy .45 slugs tear through greatcoats and helmets at close range. Men jerk and fall, screams mixing with the deep, rhythmic thud-thud-thud of the submachine gun. 10, 12, 15 Germans go down in the first 10 seconds, blood steaming dark against the white snow. The drum magazine empties with a final clatter. Germans are starting to recover, swinging weapons toward him, a few charging with bayonets fixed. Funk doesn't flinch. In one lightning motion he slaps the release, the empty 50-round drum dropping into the snow. His left hand is already pulling a fresh 30-round stick magazine from his belt, trained muscle memory from 1,000 drills. Click, magazine seated. He racks the bolt with his right hand while rising to his feet, the entire reload taking perhaps 3 seconds. The Thompson speaks again. He advances now, walking fire into the disorganized mass. Short bursts left, pivot, bursts right. Germans scatter, some diving for cover behind walls or hay wagons, others frozen in shock. A sergeant tries to rally a group near an MG-42 tripod. Funk stitches them from hip to hip, the gunner slumping over his weapon before he can traverse it. 20 seconds in, his own men realize what's happening. The kneeling prisoners surge up, tackling guards, grappling for rifles. Funk's patrol at the edge of the square opens fire, Garens and a bar cracking in disciplined rhythm, dropping more Germans from the flank. Funk keeps moving forward, snow crunching under his boots, breath steady. Another magazine change, fluid, almost casual, stick out, new one in, bolt released. He swings the muzzle toward a knot of 10 or 12 enemy soldiers trying to form a firing line behind a stone wall. A long burst tears along the wall, stone chips flying, men crumpling. 45 seconds after the first shot, the square falls silent except for groans and the wind. 21 Germans lie dead in the snow, many more wounded. The rest, those still able, throw down weapons, hands high, faces pale with disbelief. Funk's men and the freed prisoners round them up, herding nearly 70 survivors into a tight group. Funk lowers the smoking Thompson, barrel faintly glowing. He looks around at the carnage, then at his paratroopers, some staring at him in awe, others already binding prisoners' hands with boot laces. He exhales a cloud of frost, wipes a smear of blood from his cheek, not his own, and says in his calm Pennsylvania voice, "Let's get these krauts moving before more show up." The entire action, start to finish, has taken less than a minute. For this extraordinary feat of gallantry, initiative, and raw combat skill, First Sergeant Leonard A. Funk Jr. will be awarded the Medal of Honor. His citation will read, in part, his bold action, personal courage, and willingness to engage a far superior enemy force single-handedly saved the lives of his comrades and turned certain defeat into victory. But the war isn't over yet. There are still miles of snow and forest to clear, and more fights ahead. The war in Europe grinds on for 3 more months after Holzheim. The 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment pushes eastward with the Allies, clearing the last pockets of German resistance in the Ardennes, crossing the Rhine, and driving deep into the Reich. First Sergeant Leonard Funk continues to lead his men with the same unflinching calm that defined him in Normandy, Holland, and Belgium. There are more firefights, more prisoners rounded up, more frozen nights in foxholes, but nothing quite matches the raw intensity of those 45 seconds in the snow. May 8, 1945. Victory in Europe. The guns fall silent. In a quiet ceremony later that year at the White House, President Harry S. Truman drapes the pale blue ribbon of the Medal of Honor around Funk's neck. He is one of only 6 paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne to receive the nation's highest award during the war. By then, his chest already carries the Distinguished Service Cross, twice, Normandy and Market Garden, the Silver Star, Bronze Star, and 3 Purple Hearts. A modest man, Funk reportedly tells reporters, "I just did what needed to be done. Any of the fellas would have done the same." He rotates home in the summer of 1945, boarding a troopship bound for New York. The skyline rises out of the Atlantic haze, Lady Liberty welcoming another son back from hell. Discharged as a master sergeant, Funk returns to western Pennsylvania, to the steel towns and rolling hills he left 4 years earlier. He marries his sweetheart, attends college on the GI Bill, and settles into civilian life. The war hero becomes a claims adjuster for the Veterans Administration in Pittsburgh, quiet, steady work helping other veterans navigate the bureaucracy he once despised. The years pass. Funk rarely speaks of the war. When pressed by family or old comrades at reunions, he shrugs off the stories, preferring to talk about fishing on the Allegheny River or the Pirates' chances that season. He raises a family, watches his children grow, becomes a grandfather. The medal hangs in a simple frame in his home, gathering dust more than attention. On October 23, 1977, Leonard Alfred Funk Jr. dies peacefully at age 61 in his hometown of Braddock, Pennsylvania. He is laid to rest with full military honors in Arlington National Cemetery, Section 7A, beneath a white marble stone that lists his name, rank, and the simple words, Medal of Honor. Today, his story is still told in the barracks of the 82nd Airborne, in history books, and in quiet moments when soldiers study what real courage looks like. Not the loud kind, not the cinematic kind, just a stocky paratrooper from Pennsylvania who, when staring down 90 rifles and an MP40 in his gut, laughed, and then did the impossible. Because sometimes, in the worst possible moment, all it takes is one man willing to flip the table.